This podcast contains explicit talk about self-harm and other self-injury, mental illness, and other triggering topics. Please be advised this is not for everyone. And if you feel very uncomfortable talking or listening to this type of thing, I will not be offended if you click off, and I'll see you guys next week. Enjoy the podcast. Hello and welcome to the Title Pending Podcast. I'm your host this and every week. My name is Willow. How's everybody doing today? I'm sorry if you can hear my cat meowing in the background. He has decided to be a part of this podcast, and I don't know what else to do about it besides let him. So my original idea for this podcast was gonna be to have a sex ed discussion because, I was recently going off about how people don't really know how to get those with vaginas off. And that's the simplest way to put it, without going too in-depth. And maybe I will eventually do a podcast on that, because it is something I am obscenely passionate about, as someone who has had sex, and as someone who has a vagina. But something happened to me today, and I feel as though this is a pressing issue in many of the communities that I'm in. I don't know if that makes any sense, but let me preface this with a story. I was at work today. I work in retail. I work at a shoe store. So I'm helping this customer with a pair of shoes, and he's taken 10-15 years to decide whether or not he's an 8.5 or a 9. And apparently he had come in the day before with the same issue, starting out with size 11. So he has an inflated sense of self, to say the least. But I helped this customer all the way to the end, and he ends up picking up a pair of shoes. So I ring him out or whatever. I get his email for the receipt, and then I get a question from him. He goes, "Can I ask you a really personal question?" I don't say yes, because that's a weird question for someone you've never met to ask. You don't get to know personal things about me. I don't want to give you personal information. You're not someone that I know or trust or see any ability to know or trust. I see someone who needs a pair of shoes, and that's it. So I don't answer. I just kind of look at him because I don't want to be rude, and I'm just like, your receipt's in your email, and I try to avoid the question, and he asks me anyway. He goes, "Well, okay, now that I think about it, it's not really even a question. It's more of a statement, more of an observation, if you will. I wear shorts in the summer, like many people do. A lot of people don't, but I am part of the group of people that do wear shorts in the summer. On my legs, I do have some visible scars from previous endeavors into self-harm, and I have become comfortable with the way they look and the way I look with them, so I wear shorts. I don't really care if people see them, because I thought, and this is what the big point of this is, I thought that people pretty much knew not to ask about them. I know little kids are an exception to this rule. Little kids will be like, "Oh, what happened to your leg? What happened to your arm? Why is it covered in scratches or cuts or burns or whatever?" And you can't really blame the children for that. That's something that you're going to encounter. That's something that I encountered a lot with my younger cousins. They would always ask, "Oh, what happened to your arm? What happened to your leg?" And, I would lie to them, and I would try to, pull myself out of that situation, and that's something that I had to deal with. But now I feel as though they are faded enough where you can tell they're not recent scars. Hi, David. But you can definitely tell what they're from. But I feel as though there's this etiquette of, don't ask, don't tell, with this kind of stuff, especially in public settings. Now, I feel as though it's different if it's a friend trying to protect you or to make sure that you're okay, because, that's just out of pure common decency, to go to your friend and be like, "Hey, I noticed these these marks, these cuts, these burns, whatever seems to be happening. This is if you pull your friend aside privately, have known them long enough to know that they, would be comfortable coming to you, and someone who, isn't really advertising or, showing the physical results of what they had gone through. Like someone who usually wears long sleeves and one day decided to pull her sleeves up and didn't really notice, or someone who usually wears pants but only had her gym shorts and then something was noticed. Like, that's different to pull your friend aside and be like, hey, I'm here to talk, whatever. Rather than what this person did to me, this total stranger, while I was working, which I think is also very inappropriate. I will quote what he said now. So I know this is really personal, but I saw the scars on your leg, and I wanted to let you know that I'm a missionary, and if you ever wanted to reach out, I could give you my information. So many things wrong with that. I'll let that sink in for a second, though. I am a missionary, and if you ever wanted to reach out, I could give you my information. Let me break that down for you. Let me break it down. I am not religious, to begin this whole entire mess. I'm not religious at all. I am very much not Mormon. I am very much not Christian at all. I'm actually pretty against Christianity as a whole, and that's a whole other podcast that we don't really need to have. I am not religious. If I were religious, I don't think for a second that I would be comfortable going up to someone that I didn't know to tell them that their scars are part of something that can be helped with religious help. I don't think I'd be comfortable going to someone and pretty much looking down on them and telling them, oh, your problems and your sins can be solved. Give me a call when you come around. It felt very demeaning and very condescending, and I know that probably wasn't the intention. It never is, unless you're a vile human being. And I understand the inability to have that human decency and that common sense, and to be only looking out for... Holy shit, he just knocked over my suitcase. David! Podcast with Willow. Anyway, I don't think he was intentionally being malicious. I do truly believe it is due to a lack of education in things like mental health and stigma surrounding mental health. A lot of people in these religions, these more conservative religions and practices, they do believe that mental health is something that can be solved by God, and something that can be solved with praying and all that fun stuff. And, science has completely disproven that, and that's totally fine. It's fine to have beliefs like that. It's good to have faith in something. But to come up to total strangers and talk about something you do not understand because it will help your mission or help what you're trying to accomplish is gross. And maybe I'm being overdramatic because I do understand people being concerned about what my legs look like. But I still feel as though there's this unspoken rule where if you see something like that on someone that you do not know, someone who seems to have, an okay grasp on their being, like they're pretty self-aware. I wear shorts. I know that my legs look pretty beat up, and I know that, it's not something that I hide anymore, because I have lived with them for so long, and have pretty much gotten over that part of myself, and I'm okay with my friends asking about it, and I'm okay with, but I think there's this rule, and correct me if I'm wrong, where you don't really ask strangers about their scars of any kind, their physical features of any kind. It's the same thing as going up to a burn victim and letting them know, hey, like, that looks pretty bad. I'm a Mormon, you want to talk about it? Like, it's fucking weird. Like, healing from mental trauma is similar to healing from physical trauma in that way, where you don't really want to share it with people you don't know. You don't really want to talk about it with people you don't know. And then if you do, you seek that help first. You don't wait for someone to come up to you and tell them that they're on a mission to whatever the fuck and, you know, can heal you. Because what usually ends up happening in those situations is you'll reach out to these people who are begging for you to help them by, you know, helping you to help themselves pretty much more than anything else. And, you know, they'll look for worse things because it's all very selfish. It's a very selfish practice to seek out helpless people and pride yourself on helping them and healing them when you're doing it for yourself and not for these people. And I do believe that some people genuinely think that they're doing something good. I don't believe that all people are evil, and I know I sound very pessimistic more than anything else. But in my experience from this type of thing with people who they see themselves as someone God handpicked to help heal the earth. And that's just, it's bullshit. I'm sorry. Like, I don't know a better way to put it. I don't know how else to say it. God doesn't choose people to bring the flood or fucking, like, heal the earth and turn water into wine. Like, that was never what the Bible said at all. And I know that, and I have never been religious a day in my life. So, using religion to your own personal gain and own personal advantage is crap more than anything else. And I'm sorry if this is like a super, super heavy topic to be talking about, but based on what I've experienced with my mental stability and the people who have treated me differently because of it, I've just had enough, and I think that it's good to inform people the etiquette of how to treat people with mental illness, and that's just treating them like human beings. Okay, I'll give you another example. I believe I was in 7th grade or 8th grade at the time, and I was not in a good place mentally. I was really in one of the worst places I've ever been. I think that was the first time I had a real breakdown before my high school breakdown, which was much more real and much scarier. But we won't talk about those today. But I was in a really bad place mentally, and I was hurting myself a lot, and I was, you know, it was towards the end of the year at this point, so I was wearing short sleeves, and my scars were visible, and they were pretty fresh, or they had just scabbed over. They looked not good, pretty much is what I'm trying to say, and I'm really sorry for this. You know, I gave a trigger warning at the beginning of the video, but I want to reiterate, I'm very sorry if this isn't for you. I'll see you guys next week if this is too heavy. I don't feel bad for not being able to listen at all. But I was wearing short sleeves because at that point I had just given up on trying to hide them. I was too warm and just wanted to enjoy that part and didn't really think it through. So this kid came up to me and was like, "You cut yourself?" ? Like, really casually, like, not even whispering, not even, like, trying to prove that, you know, he was my friend. And I looked at him and I go, "Excuse me? Like, what gives you the right to come and ask me that? We are classmates and we have known each other for 4 years, but we have not said more than one sentence to each other per day. We're not friends. You don't get to embarrass me like that in front of my friends who I was talking to at the time. It isn't something that you do to people. I feel like it's super obvious that coming up to someone and like pointing out a physical feature that's different or that's, you know, wrong. I just feel as though that's kind of an unspoken thing where you just don't fucking do that. You don't point out someone's lazy eye, you don't point someone's bum knee, you don't point someone at, like, bald spot. Like, It's the same thing. Just out of, like, respect for this person. But on top of that, it comes with a lot of mental trauma that they don't even bother sharing, because people see those who hurt themselves as, you know, looking for attention, so that they think that asking questions is the way to go, when in reality, the last thing they want to do is talk about their trauma. The last thing they want to do is, maybe not all the time, but they don't want to bring attention to it. They don't want, this is, again, at least in my experience, I did not hurt myself for attention. I did not hurt myself because I wanted classmates to call me out in the middle of homeroom and be like, hey, why'd you do that for? Like, why would I tell you if you asked me like that? If you asked me to make a spectacle of me and you didn't pull me aside and be like, hey, I really care about you, I see that you're going through something, you know, if you ever want to talk, is different from, hey, you cut yourself, why do you do that? Like, that's literally someone, it's like that meme where these really, like, popular girls turn around in class and go, are you emo? Do you cut yourself? Can I see your wrists? Like, that's literally happened to me before. That's actually something that happens to people in middle and high school, because we are seen as a type of spectacle, or a type of, like, damage, that if you acquire us as friends or you learn our trauma, then you win a trophy or something, or you're seen as, like, a better person for being friends with someone who is quote-unquote broken. And I feel like that's absolute bullshit. Like, I don't know what else to say to that besides trash. Like, you're trash. I literally don't know what else to say. But anyway, I feel as though it's kind of obvious not to bring it up, especially in front of other people, especially with someone you don't talk to. It's very easy to ask someone if they need help. And that has happened. I've had good experiences with that as well. I was sent to guidance in 8th grade because one of the teachers saw my arms and was concerned. She kept herself anonymous. I never found out which teacher it was. And I talked to guidance and told them I was going to therapy and told them that I was handling it. My mom knows everything is, you know, under control, but that I appreciate, you know, someone caring about me enough to report it to someone like that. And I feel as though that is a very good way of doing something like that. If you feel as though you can't talk to them yourself and you can't pull them over and be like, hey, do you need help because I care about you? See what you can do. Talk to a teacher or a guidance counselor or a parent. And it's really hard because a lot of kids don't have common sense, but I feel as though once you reach high school age, you should be able to know how to go about this. And maybe I shouldn't expect that because it's not taught, and it is behavior that needs to be taught, I think, and enforced more, for people to get help from adults or someone that they trust when someone is, you know, a danger to themselves or others. I just feel as though it's necessary to be taught in schools. It's the same lines as if you see someone being bullied, go to someone you trust. Like, they're bullying themselves. Like, it's definitely a little heavier than being bullied by other people, but this type of stuff can be caused by bullying as well. So if you see someone being bullied, try to think of that consequence that they might end up taking it out on themselves, which can be very scary to think about, but you could be saving lives out here if you just did it correctly. And this wasn't meant to be a PSA of any kind. This wasn't meant for me to, like, go off about how you should treat people with mental illness. This is how you should treat everybody, especially people in unsafe situations. You should just, if you see something, say something, but don't say it insensitively. You're not helping someone for the right reasons if you're asking them in front of a large group of people why they have cuts on their legs, or why they have burn marks on their forearms, or why, you know, they only wear pants, or fucking anything like that, or why they listen to the music that they listen to, like why they write sad poetry, or why there's a fucking pocket knife in their bag. Like, it's just not your business. You don't ask why, you just ask, how can I help? I think that is the main message, more than anything, is just to be there to help in any way that you can. telling someone, hey, I saw what you're doing there, let me preach to you, is just very, it rubs me the wrong way. It felt very self-motivated more than anything, and maybe he had good intentions, but again, I don't know this person. I sold shoes to this person. I didn't make any sort of emotional connection. So I felt as though him asking or telling me even that he saw my leg and told me that, you know, he could help me without knowing who I am, just felt very selfish to me and very insensitive. But, you know, I'll get a ton of messages after this podcast goes up that I'm sensitive and should be grateful that someone cares enough about me to tell me that they can help. Like, fine, whatever, you can think whatever you want. These scars are years old at this point. And again, this person didn't know me. They didn't know that I hurt myself. In all honesty, anything could have happened to me. I could have fucking fallen down a flight of stairs. I could have been scratched by a raccoon. Like, you don't know my life. You don't know that I did this to myself. I mean, granted, you could probably put 2 and 2 together, but what if I had fucked him up? What if I had told him, hey, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about, my cat did these to me? Like, how awkward would that be? It's just not a way to go about doing things, is assuming you could help them, and assuming you know what their life is like, and assuming you know what they're going through. Like, it's just, again, very selfish and very oblivious to the fact that people have different lives and people react to things different ways. It's just not something that you have any right to ask about. Unless you are asking out of pure intent to help someone and pure... You don't ask where someone's got their scars. You just let them know that you're there to talk. I feel like I'm talking in circles at this point, and maybe I am, but it's insane to me that people will do this in such a public setting when it's such a sensitive issue. It's just very wrong, and it feels very weird when you're on the receiving end of it. And I feel as though it's difficult to do that to someone unless you are completely oblivious to other human feelings. I would be so uncomfortable going up to someone and being like, hey, I saw your scars, we don't know each other, but, like, here's my number if you want to talk. Like, you don't want to talk about it, you want to know what my trauma is as a stranger. And that's weird. That is so fucking weird. I don't even know where to begin with how weird that is. I'm not going to tell a stranger my deepest, darkest secrets and why I started self-harming and why, you know, I'm depressed or why I like girls or whatever. Like, especially, in my opinion, if it's involved with some sort of church or religion, because it will end up with me being told that everything I am is wrong because I am not the religion that they are, and reaching out to someone who has a different religion than you to weaponize that religion is just not fucking worth it. Like, maybe if he had said, hey, I'm like a student counselor and, like, I noticed your leg and I want you to know that there is help for that. But not knowing the person in the first place is very weird to me, to, like, feel as though you are entitled to an answer. So needless to say, I didn't react well to his statement of telling me he's a missionary and I should reach out to him if I ever am in a bind. So I gave him his shoes and walked away. I literally blinked up at him, said, I go to therapy. This is not something you ask people, and I walked away. This is just... It felt very wrong. Everything was very disgusting and weird, and I never want to experience that again. And you can say it's my fault for wearing shorts, but again, wasn't his business. Wasn't even slightly his business. And it's just something that you learn as time goes on, especially if you're friends with people who have done this or people who continue to do this type of thing. If you have ever experienced this type of thing, it's a don't ask, don't tell situation. If you can tell that these marks are years and years old, they've healed, they're, they don't look cute, but they look healthy. My legs don't look fresh at all, I promise you. You can assume that I'm getting help. If I'm, like, scabbing and cracking those scabs onto the sales floor, and, you feel uncomfortable with me helping you because of the blood, that's different. That's a whole other different situation that, we don't need to go into because it's going to be super triggering for me and probably a lot of you. But as a stranger, word of advice, don't ask other strangers about their scars or tell them that you notice them. We know that they're noticeable. We know that you can see them. If we didn't know that you could see them, you would be able to tell that we had no idea. I would be wearing pants, and you wouldn't be able to see them at all. And that would be me making the effort to avoid questions. I am wearing shorts. I know that they're visible. No one forced me to wear shorts and then brainwashed me into thinking I wasn't wearing shorts. I know I'm wearing shorts. I know you can see my legs. I know you can see everything on my legs. That's why I have really cool tattoos. Let's talk about those instead. Let's not talk about the fact that I'm trying to cover these scars with tattoos, because it's an obvious thing. We don't really need to have that conversation. Stop talking to me about it. That's all I'm asking. So in the future, if you see someone that looks like they have self-harm scars on their arms, their legs, or, are struggling with something, and you don't know this person, and you're buying something from them, and they are ringing you out, don't point them out. Don't point them out in front of other people. Don't point them out in front of their coworkers, in front of your friends, in front of your mom, in front of your fucking dog. I don't care. If you don't know this person, and you have no intention of knowing this person and getting to know this person and being friends with this person and gaining their trust, you have no right to know anything about them beyond their name and the store's phone number. You don't get a look at their lives because you want to know, because you ask politely, because it's just not something that you do. And I'm very passionate about this because it's happened to me a few times, and I feel as though at this point in your life, if you are asking people about self-harm scars, you are doing it for selfish reasons, and you are doing it for insensitive reasons. Unless you are telling them, hey, I know someone that's a doctor or a therapist, and I've seen that these are recent, and I consider you my friend, and we've talked for, if you're confused as to whether or not you can ask a person if they need help, chances are you probably can't, because you're not on the level where you're comfortable enough to. Don't ask me, hey, can I ask you a personal question? Because I'm gonna say no. Because it means that you want personal information from me for no other reason other than the fact that it's personal and you're nosy. If you are my friend, you already know what the fuck is going on. You already know when I need help. It's something you establish as you gain trust with someone. It is not something that you can just tell strangers. It's weird. And it's so sketchy to me that people do that and think that that's polite or okay. You have such a weird idea of how to socialize with other humans. It's crazy. This episode was a lot angrier than I wanted. It was more of a TED Talk than a podcast. But we're working towards what I want this podcast to be. We're getting there. I have a lot of feelings about this type of thing, and I feel as though it's important for people to understand where someone, comes from when, they have this type of mental illness. I have been diagnosed with bipolar disorder for 2 years, and, I've been on medication and have been in and out of therapy, and I feel as though that is all I just told you guys, I'm not secretive. Things that you want to know about me, you will get to know with time and with gaining my trust as either a following or my friends or family even. If you are a stranger buying a pair of shoes from me, you have no right to ask about my Anything. Anything. You don't get to ask if I have a dog. I mean, you can ask if I have a dog, but, like, you know what I mean? Does this make any sense? I really hope that I didn't lose you halfway through this podcast, but, I'm very passionate about it. Now I'm gonna read my patrons who have made this podcast possible and have helped me figure out what the motherfuck I'm doing with my channel. Haley Park, IDKLOLZ, Willow's Mom, Taylor Marshall, Caitlin St. Louis, Sophia, Tina, Shelby Church, Emily Buchanan, Amanda Satterfield, Kat, Holly, Rapkin, Mary Cabral, Molly, and Gina. Thank you all so